And look, I'm flying straight to you. They call me Superman lover, yeah. Say they call me the Superman lover, yeah. But something wrong, there's something wrong with me to see. Something wrong, yes it is, babe. Wanna buy a new car, but the price ain't right. Ain't that cold? Be a damn sight cheaper, yes it would. Started riding a bike. Listen, they're making milk out of powder. Yeah they are. Got the babies crying. Poor baby, they know what that stuff is. Rent's gone up higher, yes it is. Got the parents lying. I'll pay you tomorrow. Lord, it's a real motherfucker, yeah. Make you wanna run for cover, yes it will. And if you look, you will discover, yeah. Lord, it's a real motherfucker, yeah. Oh! God. Listen, got to go to a disco. Throw your troubles away. Dance to the music. Yeah. That the DJ play. Well, all right. And then the lights come on. Yeah. Like you knew they would. Ain't that cold? Gone home and face the music. That don't sound too good. Ain't that cold? Listen. Lord, it's a real motherfucker. It'll make you wanna run for cover, yeah. And if you look, you will discover, yeah. Real motherfucker, yeah. Oh! Yes, it will. And if you look, you will discover, yeah, Lord.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Hendrik Deckers, and it's a pleasure to welcome all of you to CIONET's international web conference, Reinventing Our Organizations. We are really living through one of the most severe crises since World War II. And COVID-19's restrictions have effectively stopped organizations, has stopped organizations of functioning. And the need to stay relevant in these changing times is propelling major transformations. Companies are preparing for the new normal. And let me stop my sharing here. Companies are preparing for the new normal by challenging and changing their core organizational behavior, their hierarchies and their offerings. And of course, IT is central in reinventing our organization. So that's basically the topic of today. Let's discuss how we can reinvent our organizations. Like I said, my name is Hendrik Deckers. I'm the founder and managing director of CIONET International. And I come from you live here from Mechelen, just north of Brussels in Belgium. And we are joined today by Mark in San Francisco, by Alejandro in Chicago, and by Michał in Warsaw. This is truly a global web conference today. Like we have said, we are in the middle of a perfect storm for our organizations. I mean, digital disruptions by the tech giants and the startups have already forced many organizations to reinvent themselves. Now the Corona crisis comes on top of that, and it has forced our organizations to deal with the new normal of remote working, social distancing, and so on. And so the global economic crisis is on top of that. In some regions, even the political, social crisis is on top of that. So all that together is really a strong force that forces us to reinvent our organizations, reinvent its strategy, reinvent how we go to the market, how we service our customers, because that is key, not only for the survival, but for the future success of our organizations. Unless you want to become the next Kodak, unless you want to become the next Nokia, your organization needs now faster than ever to reinvent themselves. We have two great companies with us today in this web conference. At one end, we have Walgreens, represented by Alejandro. And Walgreens is the second largest pharmacy chain in the US, with no less than 10,000 shops in North America alone. And they are going through a massive transformation, a re-platforming and a massive transformation. And their global CIO, Alejandro Martinez, is here with us today to explain that, how he is leading that. The second organization, the second company that we have with us is Euroclear. And they are a global provider of settlement services for financial securities and transactions and safekeeping of investments. They have a financial holding of no less than 31 trillion euros. And they settle more than 800 trillion euros per year. And their global CTO, Michał Paprocki, will explain how they are reorganizing this, in fact, very traditional organization, very traditional company. I'm also joined by Mark Zawacki, and Mark lives, like I said, in San Francisco, and he leads the launch of CIONET in the US. Mark has, for the last 20 years, worked with large global organizations and has focused on helping them with strategy, growth, innovation, and organizational change. So first of all, Mark, a very warm welcome. How are you? How is San Francisco today?
Great, thanks. Good to see everyone this afternoon.
So, Mark, what I would like to do is, I would first like to go to Alejandro. So welcome, Michał, welcome, Alejandro, to this web conference. And I would like to start with a small introductions. So Alejandro, you're originally from Mexico, and you studied at the La Salle University in Mexico. You have an e-business degree of MIT Sloan. You studied leadership in Oxford, and you worked for many years at GM, at General Motors, both as a CIO in Mexico, all over LATAM, and in Europe as well. You have European experience, so you have lived in Europe as well. 2 years you were the CIO of a clinical research organization, and for now almost 4 years you are at Walgreens Boots Alliance, where first you were the SVP leading the digital transformation and IT shared services. And now, as you call it, you're on a loan to Walgreens as their global CIO. So Alejandro, if you could please introduce yourself a little bit. Who are you? We know that you live in Chicago. Who are you? What are you doing? And could you picture a little bit for those of you who don't know what Walgreens is all about, what this great company is?
Excellent, excellent. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm hoping that you can hear me well. First, let me start with a quick description of what is Walgreens. And I will be really fast. For those who are not aware what is Walgreens, we are part of a group called WWII, means Walgreens Boots Alliance. And I trust that we have a lot of audience coming from Europe. You might be aware of the Boots, the pharmacy across Europe. So we are part of the same family. We have around 10,000 stores across the US, and we are perhaps one of the largest retailers as well. Our revenues are around 120 billion per year. 120 billion. And another important data point, around 85% of our revenues comes from the pharmacy. And I will discuss a little bit later why this is so important. Now, if you think for a minute, around 85% of the US population live between 5 and 7 minutes away from Walgreens. This is the powerful or the brick and mortar if you combine with digital. I will revisit this topic a little bit later. So 10 million customers visit our stores on a single day. Walgreens is one of the most trusted brands in the US, because at the end of the day, you talk about your pharmacy, your health. Pharmacy, people trust in pharmacists. Perhaps people might not trust lawyers, but you trust your pharmacist. So I think that's very important. We are a company, we were founded in 1901, and the relationship with the pharmacist is extremely close. Now, we have 17 distribution centers across the US, and we manage all our transportation, logistics, supply chain, and so on. We're vertical and horizontal integrated. Now, really fast, I know that we would like to go to the meat of the conversation. If I can describe a store, a Walgreens store, there are three main components. In the front of the store, we have the retail business. In the middle of the store, we have the healthcare and beauty, and in the back of the have photo business. Yes, it's a very good business for us, where you can print your pictures or all your accessories, coffee shops, etc., coffee mugs, etc., but also the crown jewels, the pharmacy. We have the pharmacy there, and billions of patients visit us on an annual basis to get the prescription. Now, the last statement, Walgreens face a very important situation, being a basic brick and mortar organization. What is the dilemma? New entrants, new digital economy companies, and Walgreens face the situation, reinvent themselves or die. As has been said, the company do not want to be the next Kodak, and they took very serious the transformation. I will pause here, but most likely we will revisit this topic later.
Okay, thank you very much, Alejandro. Michał, and by the way, if you are, we are live streaming on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, all over the place. And CIONET members have joined us here on Zoom. So if you're following this on Zoom, we've got a chat function. So please put your chat, your questions to the panel in the chat. And we have Luc Hendricks with us, our CEO, and he's monitoring the chat and so he will then interrupt when there's questions from the audience. Let's go to Michał. So Michał, you're originally from Poland. You have an economy degree from the University of Gdansk, the beautiful city of Gdansk. And you have an MBA from Warsaw, and you have been working for 16 years at ING, where the last couple of years you were the VP and then the CEO of ING Tech Poland. And then they headhunted you into Brussels, and now for almost 2 years, you are the group CTO of Euroclear. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, Michał. I understand you're today in Warsaw. So who are you? What's your role in Euroclear? And in a nutshell, what is Euroclear all about?
Hello, indeed. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. I guess I'm a bit of changer or transformer within the IT world. So I try to bridge what we need from the business side and the pure technology dimension, or I was always like a bit of in between. So appealing to the engineers and trying to push a pure technology agenda, but also making sure that we have the why. So is there a business case to do so? Do we have attraction from the business side? I would maybe start with the trust, because Alejandro pretty well described that he's in trust business on the B2C part. So I believe we are in the same industry because we also operate with trust, but more in the B2B. So Euroclear is so-called FMI, so financial market infrastructure. So you could think about us as the platform that connect the issuers of securities, of bonds, of equities, of derivatives, and on the other side, you have the buyers, so in the investment house, and we are the linking pin in the middle of this process, so making sure that everything is safe. And indeed, it's 31 trillion of securities on our books, so that's quite a responsible job. And we are building our position for the last 50 years based on the trust. So we are the safe vault for that. But we also process operations, so settlement instructions, making sure that we exchange shares against the payments, and we do a lot of asset servicing operations. Just to illustrate the complexity and again magnitude of our business, what we settle yearly, it's 6 times the world GDP. So that's quite impressive, I would say, and that puts quite a pressure on me as well, because my predominant responsibility is making sure that it's always on, that it's always available, because we are systematically important and we are connecting the governments, the stock exchanges, the custodians, the major financial institutions. On the other hand, I'm there, and that's indeed how I started the current job, to change that, to transform, to make sure that we bring even more value to the business, to build on the layers that we already have, but also go beyond that.
Okay, great. Mark, you want to get this conversation started?
I do, thanks, Hendrik. Alejandro, let's unpack what you've been up to. You've got, I believe, 10,000 people in IT. You're going through a massive transformation. You have to bring leadership along. You're re-platforming. There's a lot of moving parts in there. Why don't we talk about some of the lessons learned so far, particularly from a leadership and coaching perspective? I know that's something you've spent a lot of time on. How did you get the leadership to buy into this? How do you get 10,000 people to in IT to move along this journey? And where are you at overall? Is this kind of the beginning in the first year, or has this been going 3 or 4 years? Where are you at in the overall journey?
Excellent. It's a fascinating question. So let's start with where we are with the transformation. This journey started almost 5 years ago, and I think we are halfway to the transformation. We need perhaps another 3 solid years. Now the typical hockey stick, the acceleration already started. So this is where we are in the journey. Another important topic as a part of the lessons learned is about the leadership and the ownership of this transformation program, because this is not the case where a CIO had the idea that, hey, let's try to transform our business. I think the idea of the digitalization of the enterprise came completely from the board. This is a top-down program, and that makes big difference. So the board, and especially our chief exec, review every month the state of the progress of the digitalization across the enterprise. And I will double click on this a little bit later. And every board meeting, we need to present the status of the digitalization of the enterprise. It's not the typical just situation, the dashboard, how are we doing? The board understand this is outcomes-driven activity, and we need to find a way to completely reinvent ourselves, moving from brick and mortar into a digital company in order to survive on the new digital economy. So this is a massive transformation. It had required a lot of education from everybody. Let's start first with senior management. Luckily, our chief exec is engineer by training, so he understands very well the dynamics, the cloud dynamics, et cetera, because he interacts with chief execs like Satya and others in different forums. So he has been able to research a lot about what does that mean, and also studying about the successes and the failures of companies who embrace digital transformation. So luckily, he understands that. Then I have been also a tremendous education crusade across all senior management about what does reinventing ourselves mean. And this is co-managed by the Chief Innovation Officer and the CIO, because at the end of the day, you need to have the business-led initiatives as part of the transformation, and our group are the enablers to make sure that we develop the capabilities to achieve the business outcomes. The other important topic is how you organize the IT organization, and perhaps I will go a little bit later depending if time permits.
Great, thank you.
So something that we decide is to become. Sorry, go.
Please,
let's go to. Shall we? Okay. So something that we decide first is to declare that we would like to be a platform-based organization. They are deep implications when you decide to go a platform-based organization, because at the end of the day, you stop talking about individual applications. You start to talk about products, roadmaps, and you're starting to talk about journeys and capabilities. So we consider a product end-to-end in the specific domain. Pharmacy is an example. We don't talk about all the thousands of applications you are in a pharmacy. You talk pharmacy as domain, and you talk about the business process end-to-end, and how you can digitize those elements to create competitive advantage and outcomes. So it's not just declaring that we would like to be a platform-based enterprise. You need to create the talent and the skill sets. So we create a major HR strategy to combine what I call the institutional knowledge. Some companies call it legacy resources. I call it institutional knowledge because the amount of knowledge that those folks have are priceless for us. And then we brought, obviously, the disruption. We brought guys from the market, but also we designed a specific program, and we brought a specific company from the Silicon Valley, an engineering firm, and we inject folks in different programs. In some cases, to do on the job training. In some cases, we brought Scrum Masters. In some cases, we brought completely Scrum teams. In other cases, we brought the testing team, et cetera, and we were doing this in parallel, where we were reskilling all our employees about what is design thinking, what is platform thinking, what is agile, and certifying everybody. I mean, this has been a journey. Please be aware that I mentioned that this journey started years ago. Now, for the last 2 years, I have seen a tremendous acceleration, and it's fascinating to see that a company in the a US enterprise company in the Midwest is building software at the speed and the quality of the Silicon Valley. Let me pause here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alejandro. Michał, could you paint us a little bit a picture of what are the challenges that Euroclear is going through, and what are the reinventions and the reorganizations that you and your teams are putting in place?
Tapping on what Alejandro said, again, I believe it's important to have a top-down strategy. In our case, it's pretty much similar. So we have a new strategy when we say, okay, we are in a position of power in the sense that the results are quite good or even spectacular, but we see some also threats on the horizon. So we see new wave regulations. We see some technologies, especially blockchain, that could maybe disrupt some of the intermediary role that we are having. We see also some new entrants, some nimble small organizations that are coming with new services. And we also see pressure from our customers saying, okay, you should innovate or you should produce more value added. So as a result, we nailed it down in a business strategy, which says, okay, we continue what we are doing, what we are so much well known of, and it's systematically important, but maybe we could, maybe not pivot, that would be too much to say, but maybe we could build even more services on top of that. And for us, key would be intelligence. So how to use the data that we have on the buy side, on the sell side, on all the positions, risk management, liquidity, and how to bring even more valuable insights or signals from the system that our customers could use so that they are more effective. So the first pillar indeed, so there's a concept that we would like to transform, and it's business and IT together. Having said that, we are actually an IT company as such. If you think about that, half of our total staff, it's actually within IT, and it's growing, because what we see, here comes the robotics, the automation, we inject even more technology. So actually more and more these days we are hiring software developers. So again, IT is playing a pivotal role and ever increasing, but it takes both sides. So we need to make sure that the traditional division between the business side and the IT sides are getting blurred these days. We are not yet there in the biz DevOps model, but let's say that in some areas, especially where the ones that are less regulated, when we have relatively more freedom, we are doing some R&D activities and trying and launching some new projects. Mm-hmm. And then comes the culture. So indeed, we are hiring quite a lot of people coming from different parts of work, like myself, and blend with the existing people that have all the insights and knowledge of the organization to create these dynamics. And yes, we are using external partners. So we are opening up massively, for example, being quite active in CIONET, because we want our engineers, our leaders to be exposed to other companies that are non-competitive, to share some experiences. And then you would be often amazed how similar we are at the end of the day. So the more we start to explore some issues, the more similarities we are actually observing. And having said that, agile, it's a big word, but it's not like a buzzword, so agile in the name only, but I really mean that, in the sense that we would like to empower people to be more entrepreneurial, to come up with some bottom-up ideas, to reach out, to break the traditional silos. Because the key word in our reality, and that's maybe different compared to my colleague, takes the whole ecosystem to move. It's a bit how to make sure that a herd of elephants start to dance together in harmony, because we could go as fast as our customers are moving. So we need to be very close, more than ever, with your customers. And then there could be different subjects. So these days it's more about business resilience. For example, what do we do with the VUCA word? If we have black swan events like the current pandemic that was unheard of, that forced us to rethink the way we do disaster recovery, business resilience. Luckily, we proved to be extremely reliable. And that's a token of appreciation to all my predecessors and everything that was built in the firm. But we also see new risks on the horizon. And again, systematically, we are there to reduce the risk for the market. That's our value proposition. So we have the board strategy. We are mixing talents and opening up to the broader ecosystem. We are bringing also some fresh blood, going agile, so simplifying the system and making sure that there is empowerment. And maybe last but not least, we are also dealing with fintechs. So we are much more open to joint ventures. We don't assume that all the innovation would come from in-house. It's actually rather impossible to make an assumption like that. So we are looking at the fintechs, we are investing selectively, and we do some R&D, which again forces us, maybe more now from the IT side, to go or explore the areas that we haven't go before. So for example, we are quite keen on public clouds, on blockchains, on the new offering, which were a bit like beyond our industry or didn't belong to the traditional toolkit that a CIO or CTO within the FMI sector would have. So it's a fascinating journey that is only accelerated or maybe magnified by COVID-19, because in a way it's a game changer, but in a way it's just increasing the pace of developments.
Okay, great.
Alejandro, I want I want to circle back on one of your earlier comments I find fascinating, and that is 85% of Americans are within 5 to 7 minutes of a Walgreens bricks and mortar. I happen to be one of those. I just thought about it. There's one 2 blocks from me here in San Francisco. Yet you're doing this big digital transformation, the digitization of your business. I know you wanted to talk about how the bricks and mortar business marries up with the digital journeys you're going on. I know you have a lot of passion about what that future looks like. Obviously, we see it with the big e-commerce players globally, and I assume you're going down that path. But can you elaborate on how you're marrying up and joining up the bricks and mortar businesses with these new digital journeys?
Yes, absolutely. And we have a strategy that we call last mile with a smile, which tells you at the end of the mile, you will see a human, not a smile in a cardboard box. Anyway, let's not go there. So some of the elements that we have is the first topic is we are developing additional business offerings around the pharmacy, right? We're starting to evolve into a healthcare destination. Let me give you an example. Laboratory works, right? You can do all your blood works, or you can do your audition, or you can do your glasses, your dentals, even weight management. Just imagine all the ecosystems, the services that can starting to be provided in a single point of care, even walk-in clinics, 24/7 emergency services, and so on. So we are already starting to launch those services, and the important topic is we know about the patients. The other element, just think about the possibility with millions of customer visitors on a daily basis. Just imagine the value that you can create for a company that does, for instance, clinical trials, right? Because you have the patient, you have the group disease, and you have the site, and you have the technician. So you can start to develop a different business models. So we are doing all the evolution of the point of care with the digital services, because at the end of the day, we were introducing a major marketplace and portal for find care, right? You might not want to go to the physician at night, so all the teleconsultations, find care, and a lot of digital services that we're building in parallel to make sure that we use our customer base and the strengths of the brick and mortar. Now, you can do the booking and all the activities online, so you can go to the store, so you skip all the queue, if you will, and so on. So those are part of the elements that we are doing, for instance, in the healthcare. The other topic in retail, our focus is to be convenience, right? Convenience, and what we're trying to do is creating partnership. We're running a pilot with Kroger, is another well-known retailer in the US. This is public information, where we're starting to create a Kroger store within a Walgreens and a Walgreens store within a Kroger. As a result, you're starting to see that we are starting to attract different demographic group of population, right? Because we have different assortment. We have organic products. We have things that the young generations are looking for, which is completely healthy, and all those assortments are now at our disposal. And the last topic, we're developing additional complementary services, because at the end of the day, today, everybody suffers about the porch pirates, right? When you order something online, you're expecting that will be in your Porsche, and guess what? The pirates already took your box, right? And what we're doing today is combining the brick and mortar and the Walgreens, which is 7 minutes away from you, 5 to 7 minutes away. So you can use us as a destination to pick up your package. And guess what? When you are there to pick up your package, perhaps you need milk, or perhaps you need bread, or perhaps we're starting to combine all those elements in order to create new offerings. And you have today a FedEx point of shipment and receiving as well in the Walgreens. So we are developing the ecosystems around convenience, and how can you use your brick and mortar footprint to create entry barriers to the digital economy companies. Is fascinating, but that doesn't mean that all the strategy is brick and mortar. I hope that I have also be able to share that the digitalization and the creation of digital services is an overriding priority. So I'm not sure if we have anyone from Amazon in the call, but if they are, I will say game on.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Michał, how do you look at Euroclear as Alejandro mentioned that he's building a platform enterprise? Can you look at Euroclear as it's one of the questions that we have in the chat here as a platform company as well?
Definitely, but again, a platform for capital markets. So our value proposal, apart from trust, that you could really rely on us, that we are always secure and resilient by nature. We are also expanding our services, so both horizontal, we are connecting new markets, especially fast-growing developing countries that could have, thanks to Euroclear, we own a banking license, so we could give them access to capital markets so that they could do borrowing and they could exist on international markets, which is actually pretty much helping them with further development and maturing of their financial services and of corporate governance as such. So that's the breadth of the services. But we're also working on the depth of the services. And because we are a platform, we could use the same identity or the same risk position or the same collateral to offer some value-added services so that you have like a one-shop stop. Again, it's a bit different in B2B systems. I wish I could show our outlet or physical products, but actually we are more STP, so it's straight through processing. We don't really have any screen options that we would explore. So it's more the world of APIs, of connecting the systems, of ensuring that we could go into modules and we could expose even more services towards our customers. But indeed, we see the interest and the convenience. It's pretty much similar to the pharmacy world. That the more markets you are having and the more products you have, the better off you are actually to stay and keep expanding business with Euroclear, because there's a scale effect as such.
So let's zoom in a little bit, Michał. What is the new services that you're putting in place, deeper and broader? What is your favorite example of the things that you're working on right now or that you have recently delivered for your clients?
We could analyze your instructions, check them against the market conditions and what other customers are doing, and actually forecast or predict where you are going to be short on credit or where a certain settlement instruction would fail. So we are using some predictive analytics to save you on the costs of liquidity, of risk management, to save pure back office operations. But that also sends you quite nice signals to your risk management that you could prove towards your regulator that you are more in control. Or these days it's shareholder rights directive, so a bit like know your customer. So who is the ultimate owner of certain securities, so that we could clear you in case of sanctions and reputation risks and so on. So this is where we use BI and some artificial intelligence to spot some patterns. So that's pretty much similar to the retail world, but again, the use cases are a bit different.
Okay, great.
Alejandro, I want to get back to the talent issue, the people issue. We've known each other a number of years. We've worked together. I know your passion for leading people. And when I ever talk to people that report to you, they follow you. They're very passionate about your work. 10,000 people in IT. How is that process bringing them along? Are all going to make it? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? I know you brought in some external people to help accelerate that journey, but what are the lessons? Because you're so passionate about people, what are your lessons trying to move 10,000 people through such a transformative process?
Yes, thank you for the question, Mark. This is a very complex topic. Let me take one step back and tell what's going on, because at the end of the day, in some cases, we are replatforming legacy systems. In some cases, what we're doing is create new capabilities. So there's a point where the legacy environment you will starting to go to sunset, and then the new platforms are taking over. So we're in a moment of inflection where we have the double run effect. So first, let's talk about the institutional workers that I call it, right? Those elements we are organizing. First, what's going to happen with them? Most likely, the domains that they used to support, either the technology stack or the specific applications, are disappearing. So at the end of the day, what are you going to be doing with them? Are you going to be kicking them out of the organization after all this knowledge and expertise that they have? What we're doing is where we create, as part of what we call the CIO Academy. So we create a specific boot camp. I would like to call it boot camp. It's beyond a boot camp. It's a completely strategy that basically has different domains. As I said, platform thinking, design thinking, even run-ups, agile, etc., etc. And we develop a plan for every person. So the vision and what we're doing is for all the employees in what enterprise employees, we are giving them the opportunity to acquire different skill sets, either in robotic process automation or any domains, even in run-ups. They're fascinating how these guys learn so fast how to use advanced technologies that will help us to, with machine first, make our operations more efficient. So you use the talent in the organization, and everything now is in Azure. Now we're giving them the skills in order to use the knowledge of the business to make our operations much more efficient. Now, in other cases, we have individuals who will consider product managers and so on, who in the past were business analysts and so on. Where are we training everybody? Now, that's the vision. The reality is that, based on what I have seen, just around 60% of the team cross the line. Some cases, folks are not comfortable in trying to, for specific reasons, to learn new technology or to work in a completely different environment, because now the way that we run IT, we are running IT like a technology company. We're not doing the cloud, we're not using as the new on-prem, right? As just infrastructure as a service. No, the rules are different. So some folks are not comfortable in taking the step and the evolution of, they feel uncomfortable on those environments. We provide them the opportunity to acquire skills. And if no, what we're doing is we're organizing job fairs with the community around the location that we have, because I do believe that everybody deserves to be treated with respect. So we even trying to allocate them in other positions who are not as aggressive in the transformation that we are anyway. Now that's the enterprise employment. Now for the other folks, in some cases, as I said, we have to bring talent from and poach talent from all digital companies, right? At the end of the day, if you think for a minute, when you talk to a platform, they are specific key roles: platform architects, product managers, and so on. And that talent do not exist in general terms in the traditional enterprise. So we are working in the parallel path. Path A is developing the skill set in our employees, but also we cannot wait. So we brought disruptors, right? I went basically all across the US and trying to bring a talent that will help us to take this to the next level. And something important, our company is very traditional, and in the past, they have said, no, people cannot work for us if they are not moving to Chicago or neighborhoods. And I said, well, guess what? I don't care what you say, right? I need the talent, and you need to provide me the flexibility to leverage the talent where it is, because at the end of the day, we need to disrupt. And I don't have time for change your policies. Find a way for me to bring talent regardless of where they are. And it has been a very interesting also negotiation with HR, when they understand the size of the transformation and really the lack of talent in specific positions in specific geographies, just to take them to scouting trips to the Silicon Valley and other places where they see the talent, they see the operating model and so on, then they realize that they need to help us. So has been, again, a multi-threads approach in order to make sure that we go to this point. Where we are we perfect? No. Are we an agile enterprise? No. Because at the end of the day, agile is one of the tool sets for the CIO. That doesn't mean that you need to be to be a modern CIO. In some cases, we have extreme agile. In others, we have agile. In others, we have agile. And in others, like SAP projects and so on, we follow the traditional methodology. I mean, what matters is the model, the mindset, and the speed. I'm hoping that this answers your question, Mark.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Michał, let's talk about a little bit about how the technology teams at Euroclear. Did you say that about half of the people there are in technology, and so you can you explain that a little bit, and can you talk a bit about the cultural change that Euroclear is going through, because it's a very, in the beginning I said it's a traditional almost conservative company maybe, and it probably has to be, because you have to make sure that everything that goes on is perfect. But how do you make a change in a traditional organization like that and make it more modern culture-wise?
It's not easy, I have to admit. If you would go into our website, you would see that we are risk averse. That's like an notion that we are proud of. And then imagine driving agile or fail fast methodology. So at first sight, it looks like a big contradiction. And seriously, some people were confused when I started to preach maybe more entrepreneurial, more aggressive approaches. But I am in the people business. I truly believe that you could buy any technology and any solution, or you could do that with a partner or with a joint venture or with a fintech. So that's not the name of the game. It is how to make sure that you have the sheer energy and the capability, the culture to embrace that, to spot some opportunities, to integrate them, to do that IT with business, to also bring your customers in. So to be honest with you, my first year at Euroclear was almost predominantly about culture and people management. So I spent a lot of time communicating with people, like one-to-one, talking with the engineers. For some of them, even like 20 years in the service, that was the first time ever that they had like a quality discussion with CTO, because I was very eager to learn what are the problems, so how the situation really looks like beyond the PowerPoint layer. And I believe that was very appreciated because it gave me a lot of insights into what is going on, and it also creates some layer of trust that you are there for real, to listen to the people and to respond to their problems. Then we also do leave no man behind, in the sense that we truly double down on our efforts for training to upskill people. Indeed, it's quite a long shot for a mainframe guy to go into the containers or to go into the public cloud, but actually it is truly possible. If I look at some career developments of my fellow colleagues, I see that they went through some cycles already in their life because they're able to make the connections. So if I'm preaching about the DevOps, it's like lean in operations, but like turn into IT. Then you go about microservices and containers, and it's like, it's SOA coming again, a bit like rebranded. So you see on certain level of abstraction, I believe the meta trends look similar. So we make sure that we talk to the people, we explain. So I spent really a lot of my time these days, it's mostly over the video, to make sure that I have this one-to-one relationship in a bit regardless of the hierarchy. So I deal with my direct reports, but I also reach out to whenever it's possible to make sure that I'm there to answer any questions, to explain myself firsthand what this transformation is about. I even use some funny tricks which Gartner would refer to as the culture hack. So I'm using Star Wars as the notion to drive like the positive energy that we are there, like a bit of the rebels, trying to disrupt the market, come up with a new solution. And that's very appealing regardless of geography and industry. I found that quite a universal and powerful signal. You could check my LinkedIn posts, and they're also around leadership, but in a funny or maybe provocative format of the Star Wars energy. And we also encourage people for empowerment. So we are, for example, implementing cost transparency and product ownership as such. So you are the mini CEO of your product. So what would you do if that was your own company? So what is the rational choice? So maybe instead of like always checking with your manager or producing like a hefty report, like tell me what is the pragmatic move. Okay, convince me, how do you mitigate the risks? It's still conservative, it's still very much risk-averse culture, but I believe you could actually do miracles if you're credible as a leader So if people know that you are for real, you really mean what you're saying, if you spend a lot of time listening, and if you also communicate what is the dot of the horizon, so what is the vision that we are driving, but you try to get as many resources and freedom as possible so that your troops could actually develop.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Alejandro, I want to touch on platforms, and I know a question came up on this. If I parse it out, I think I'm hearing you talk about platforms kind of in two senses. One, you talk about re-platforming, and it sounds like you're advancing the IT portfolio. You know, in IT terms, we just often call that re-platforming. And then secondarily, I think when you describe the future of your bricks and mortar businesses, and you talked about, you know, Kroger, you talked about potentially all the services that go around that, the dentists, the doctors, the eye technicians, that feels more like a platform economy where you're a two-sided marketplace bringing lots of other players. And then there was a question that came up from the audience today from Alon that said, does that mean you're going to go so far as to allow third-party apps to plug into your platform? So the first question is, did I hear you kind of use platform in two contexts? One is re-platforming and the other is, you know, creating a two-sided market. And then secondarily, to Alon's question, does that mean that you would go so far as to create a third-party marketplace around that new WWII platform?
Absolutely. No, thank you for the question. And you are correct. They are two different parallel paths. One is the technology platform, and this is what we are doing with our cloud modernization, if you will. In some cases, what we're doing, lift and shift, phase one. Phase two is replatforming. Is those applications where perhaps the total cost of ownership did not make sense to lift and shift, so you need to bring past services and other modernization techniques, even non-SQL databases, just to mention one. And this is what you're starting to do with your replatforming for your portfolio of applications. That's parallel one. So, but for me, they are not a specific platform. You are replatforming from the technology side of the house. Now, for us, platform is a different element. It's a different context. We are organized by a specific business domain. So we have the pharmacy platform, to give you an idea, or the photo platform. I mentioned that we have a photo business in Walgreens where you can remotely go and print your photos for your vacations. Or guess what? In the US, February 14 is a very important day, right? Or Mother's Day, and perhaps you want to tailor a specific gift, a calendar or a coffee mug or whatever, in order to give to your loved one. Right? We, as part of our digital platform, we have developed APIs, and we're continue developing more and more and more APIs to make sure that the B2B and B2C can connect to us. We have a strategy called the digital decoupling, which is exactly how can we enable more APIs to all our services so we can go to a more open enterprise. Because just imagine the possibilities for us to evolve into a pharmacy as a service. I will leave it there, right? But is to think big and wide about the art of the possibilities. For sure, you need to start by enabling connectivities to specific activities, open your enterprise, open your services, but be very smart in how you manage your digital decoupling. At the end of the day, you're trying to expand your ecosystem. And if you think for a minute, all the services that I mentioned that we are enabling, you need APIs to your partners, because at the end of the day, they are individuals in our stores who are our partners. The weight management clinic, to give an idea, we have a partner there. And if you want to book a session, you do through the booking systems and then the APIs and so on. So yes, so we are creating big business platforms that this is where the power for us resides, right? I'm hoping that I have been able to express myself.
That makes sense, yes.
Michał, let's talk a bit about the impact the current crisis has on Euroclear, on your organization. I mean, this crisis is, at one hand, it can accelerate transformation. At the other hand, it can slow some of the transformations down. And also, you are in a very highly regulated environment. What are the expectations of regulators now that we're in the crisis? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a multi-layered question. So I'll start maybe a bit provocative. So the current crisis helps. For example, in each company you have like a bit of head office location, which is Belgium in our case, and the other countries that are maybe not in the inner circle or find it a bit hard to communicate. And imagine these days, and we really move all the 5,000 employees almost in one controlled operation at home. Now everyone is equal. We are all working out of home and we all use videos. So actually my colleagues from countries other than Belgium are very much appreciative of modern ways to communicate because it actually helps from their perspective. Another one is indeed being a conservative organization. We used to spend quite a lot of time in quite a large meetings, and that again doesn't really come handy in the current opus moderandi. So I actually see much more pragmatism in the decision-making process. So maybe we spend a bit less time discussing some options and more empower people to execute and act. So some of the technologies we are pushing in a bit of like forced situation. In a normal days, I believe I would have to lobby and explain a bit more in order to convince some of my colleagues to push forward. While again, I see an acceleration of good things. Thirdly, also the employees, I also observe that despite a bit of traditional silo structure, when the organizational chart is quite important for some of us, people are right now reaching out. So you're another box in WebEx, Zoom, and so on, and we are all dealing with each other because we are all one. So I love that from that dimension. So these are maybe the three cases, again, from people part, when the current crisis, ironically, is actually helping with the culture change. What, of course, it's not helping is that it's a bit harder to do creative work. So what we've noticed, we are actually sometimes more productive. And I just ran a town hall with all my employees on Monday when I asked them, okay, tell me, are you actually better off and happy and productive while at home? Or you're actually dying to be back to the office? And then it was about like 60-20 breakdown with 20 people like in between choosing the home location. So they see that it's actually more meaningful, it's more productive, it helps to optimize the work-life balance. But there's also a red flag raised, okay, it's okay for business as usual when we are working on the projects that were already authorized pre-crisis or on some plain vanilla business as usual operations. But it is a bit hard right now to organize a brainstorming session. How do we do whiteboarding? That's a technology that I'm exploring right now. How do we do design thinking sessions? So we really miss these face-to-face interactions. Also meeting with our customers and with business partners. So I believe after a period of time, it would be a bit tricky to work only in a remote model. So that is maybe where we need to balance that. When it comes to regulators, and I would have the pleasure to meet all the leading regulators in EU tomorrow, that would be on cyber aspects. Of course, they want us to run some extreme but plausible scenarios. That's how we call it in our industry. So, okay, how about the black swans? Some things were a bit like unheard of, or maybe beyond the normal risk management. But whoa, we never had a scenario that at one point of time, all the people would be working out of home. We always manage like dual locations. Okay, so if this country is struggling, we have the other one. Or we have our Asian operations in Hong Kong. And come on, it's a stable place. You wouldn't have like riots there or pandemics. And you see, now you have the situations that forces you to explore your business continuity. And that is what regulators are asking. Okay, are you really prepared for some new scenarios, some new vector of attacks? So for example, cyber is coming to town these days. We see an increased amount of some phishing exercises or people that are actually misusing the corona crisis. So you really need to watch out. So again, it's a bit of balance part. I believe from the people, collaboration, culture part, I actually enjoy that. And I see a lot of good traction. And my engagement, I measure employee engagement on a monthly basis. Actually, despite all the hardships, it's up. It's 7.4 in 1 to 10 scale. And I'm super proud to see that because people appreciate the care that we are taking, the communications, the honesty, the freedom, the empowerment. So it's all good stuff. And actually, it would take me more time to get into that result while in the normal office situation. But again, on the innovation, on the regulators, on the risk side, you really need to be extra prudent these days. And that doesn't make my life easier.
Okay, great. No, it's. I think there's a lot of business continuity plans that that need to be rewritten now that we have witnessed this. Mark, over to you.
Yeah, Alejandro, we're coming up to a close. In fact, maybe a question for both of you. In your opening comments, I noticed you both immediately said you have top-down support, and of course at WBA, Stefano has been very vocal in his pushing of the transformation. I suspect there might be a few CIOs and CTOs on the line that don't have that luxury right now of top-down support in an environment where they really need to change. So my final question for both of you is, for those CIOs and CTOs on the listening today on the webinar that don't have that support, what would be your one or two recommendations to begin putting that in place?
Yes, well, this is an interesting topic, and it's a very common challenge that everybody is facing. So, couple of things that my colleagues can do. Unfortunately, nobody's a prophet in their own right. Regardless how hard you push, if you're not getting the traction, you need to defraud, and there's a couple of avenues that you can do, right? One of the avenues is you can reach out to a board member, right? Especially they are specific, some individuals who are more recipient, and you can even present your strategy and the need to do something, and they will bring somebody at the board level who's starting to educate a couple of board members, and you can create the Ignite. So that's something that can be done, and there are specialized services that can help you to work with digital board, etc., etc. Don't be shy. If you think that the company is not embracing the change, I think it's your responsibility as a leader to make sure that you start the transformation. So that's one of the paths. The other element, they are even a very senior. If you are considered as a trusted advisor in the organization, either with the chief exec of the company or the CFO, or analyze what are the bigger influencers, and I think really present the scenario. And I like the example about the Star Wars, right? If you don't change, well, guess what? You're going to be disappearing, and this is what we need to do. And starting to find a way through quick wins to start the digitalization journey. Digitalization journey cannot be done in 2 seconds, but you need to start the Ignite. Those are perhaps a couple of ideas, Mark, for our colleagues.
Fantastic, thank you.
What I do on my side, so sometimes it's the taxonomy. So I've noticed that if I talk about modernization of legacy systems and I refer to IT debt, that doesn't sound like super appealing. But how about if I follow an advice of a fellow CIO who happens to be just 2 blocks away and refers to that as digital deficit? You see, then it sounds a bit nicer. It's like the same story, but you could explain that in the language that business would be more receptive to. Secondly, of course, it's a bit of networking. So maybe you could tackle that from the risk angle. How about if CRO would be your biggest ambassador? So presenting something as a systematic risk, and by doing so, so it's almost like a byproduct that you do innovation as you go, but you're de-risking the whole system or making the model more sustainable. Or maybe it's the CFO that you could reach out to, because there's a especially appealing business case that a bit challenges the status quo, so people might be hesitant to onboard on that. But hell, there's a nice case to do that. And also what we do is that we are asking our partners and doing some reference trips. So especially to some other fellow financial institutions, because as mentioned, there are a lot of similarities and sometimes it helps. I use that quite heavily while onboarding public cloud, which was considered a bit like as a not really that much secure option. But then if you have a call with the exco of, let's say, quite respectable stock exchange or another FMI, and you see, okay, these guys are actually roughly on the same journey. And then you reach out to regulators saying, okay, what is your position? So what are the assurances that you're looking for? And then slowly but surely you realize that actually much more than you originally envisaged is possible. But you need to approach that from smart way. So building alliances, explaining and targeting individuals, and using some benchmarks or some peers that are maybe on the same journey. So far it works for me quite nice.
Okay, great. And so it's just on the hour now. So I would like to thank Alejandro for being with us out of beautiful Chicago. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michał, for sending may the force be with you in Warsaw. Thank you, Mark, out of San Francisco. I really, really appreciate that. I've got a couple of final slides that I wanted to share with you. So let me just kick that off here. So I think this was a really, really great discussion. And as you know, we have already run quite a number of these web conferences. In fact, we started with our first virtual web conference back on the 14th of February of this year. And then we did one in March, we did two in April, May, and so the next one that I want everybody to register for is on the 26th of June of this year. So in about 16 days, just over 2 weeks, where we're going to have a panel of top digital leaders out of the finance sector and out of the public government sector. And in fact, we are presenting there the finalists of the European Digital Leader of the Year candidates. So a couple of actions for you before we say goodbye is make sure to register, CIONext.com. If you're not a member yet of CIONET, please join our community. If you're a digital leader, you're very welcome. And if you want to see more stories and especially some deep dive interviews on digital leadership, check out CIONET.tv, where you find quite a series of interviews that we have been running. And so with that, thank you everybody for being with us here today. And we're going to say goodbye with a small video explaining a bit more what CIONET TV is all about. Thank you so much and see you soon.
For the last 15 years, I've been on a quest to discover the DNA of the most successful digital leaders in the world. What makes them tick, what's in their minds and in their hearts. We are sharing deep insights from our world-class CIOs so that you get inspired, can learn and reach your full potential as a digital leader. If you are an ambitious technology executive, then I invite you to join CIONET. Join our community so that you too can realize your ambition.
Okay, thank you everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. We certainly did. I'm looking forward to seeing you on one of the upcoming conferences of CIONET. So we got a couple of last people just here with us today. So see you soon.